If your business employs 50 or more full-time or full-time equivalent employees, it is likely that you will be required to submit the Forms 1095-C and 1094-C to be in compliance with the Affordable Care Act. In this lesson, we will walk you through the process of preparing these forms, and you will learn about the different options you have to submit them to the IRS and your employees at the end of the year. After viewing this lesson, you should be able to complete the filings of your federal 1095-C and 1094-C forms. There are a few steps you should take before printing or submitting your 1095 and 1094-C forms. First, review the year-end software update notice and install the year-end update. At the end of each year, Sage provides an update that includes changes to the software to accommodate any new reporting requirements for year-end. This notice will arrive by email and will contain details regarding what is changing and instructions on how to download and install it, which should always be done prior to submitting any year-end tax forms. Next, you will want to make sure that you are up to speed on the reporting requirements for the Affordable Care Act. This will ensure you prepare and submit the correct forms and information to the IRS and your employees. One of the factors that will help you determine which Affordable Care Act forms you will be required to submit and what information needs to be included on them is to determine the number of full-time and full-time equivalent employees at your company. There is a tool in payroll you can use to determine these counts. And once you know what your full-time and full-time equivalent counts are, and which forms you will be required to submit, you'll want to make sure that you are tracking the appropriate information in payroll so that when you are ready to prepare the forms, all of the necessary information will be included. This chart provides, at a glance, the Affordable Care Act forms and information that must be provided to employees and the IRS at the end of the year. In this lesson, we will walk through the process of preparing and submitting the 1095-C and 1094-C forms, which is required if you are an applicable large employer, or one who employs 50 or more full-time or full-time equivalent employees. Employers who do not offer a self-insured health care plan are only required to complete Parts 1 and 2 on the 1095-C form, while employers who do offer a self-insured health care plan are required to complete all 3 parts of the form. For the purposes of this lesson, we will be showing the steps to complete all sections of these forms, and we will make sure to point out the differences in the steps to complete based on the type of healthcare plan your company offers to your employees. Let's get started. In Payroll, go to Tasks, Federal, eFile, and Reporting, and select the 1095/1094-C form in the list. A description of the form appears here, and all you need to do to get started is confirm that the correct year is selected here, and then click Next. You can choose to remove employees if applicable. Keep in mind that only employees with an ACA exempt status of full-time or not exempt on the Employee Setup ACA Coverage tab will be included, so it is not necessary to remove employees here that have a status of exempt or not working, as they will already be excluded by default. Click Next to continue, and then click Generate. Read and then click OK on the 1095-C Company Information message, and the ACA Setup Wizard opens, which will guide you through the preliminary steps. In the first step, you will need to decide what you want to do. Your options are to test drive with just the first 25 employees, test drive with all employees, or process the actual 1095 and 1094-C forms. If you are here simply to test this out, use one of the test drive options, as this does not save any data, just allows you to try the feature out. If you are ready to prepare the official forms, select No Thanks, Start Processing My 1095/1094s, and then click Next. In the next step, confirm that the Federal Employer Identification Number for your business is pre-filled correctly, and then click Next. Your company information in the upper portion of the window should be included automatically, but you will want to be sure that all the information is correct and make any corrections if they are necessary. And in the lower portion of the window, enter the contact information for the person who is completing the 1095 and 1094-C forms. The company and contact information entered in the Company Information window will be reported in boxes 1 through 8 in Part 1 on the 1094-C form. Click Next to continue. Select the appropriate tax preparer type, then click Next. And if you are a designated government entity and need to complete boxes 9 through 16 in Part 1 of the 1094-C form, select this option. Otherwise, select I am filing for my company/employer and click Next. And now, in the Employee and Covered Individual Social Security Numbers window, indicate how you would like the Social Security numbers for employees and their covered individuals to be displayed on printed copies sent to the employees. While preparing the forms, the full Social Security numbers will be displayed on screen. But when the actual copies of the forms for the employees are printed, it will use the options selected here to determine how the Social Security numbers should be displayed. For employees, you have the option to show the full Social Security number, or truncate it using asterisks or X's to show only the last 4 digits. If you select the truncate the employee's Social Security number, the same choice will be automatically selected for the covered individuals below. Remember, the information for covered individuals is reported in Part 3 of the 1095-C forms, which is only required for applicable large employers providing self-insured coverage. Once you have selected the options you would like to use, click Next, which brings you to the final window in the ACA Setup Wizard. If you track payroll data for a single EIN in multiple master files, the system has the ability to combine them in the process so that all of your 1095 and 1094-B information can be compiled in a single session. In this example, all payroll data is stored in a single file. So select No, I use a single data file for this EIN. To view a demonstration showing how to use the Merge feature to consolidate payroll data stored in multiple locations for the same EIN for tax reporting purposes, view the lesson titled Merge Payroll Information for Consolidated Reporting in the Year-End Anytime Learning subscription, available on sageu.com. Now click Next, and the 1094-C Preparer window opens, which will guide you through the remaining steps to prepare and submit your tax forms. Let's take a moment to get familiar with the Preparer window. At the top of the window, you will see a status bar, which lets you know what step in the process you are on, and the instructions tell you what information you should be reviewing during that step. For example, this is step 1 of 5, and the instructions say, Verify employer information. In this step, you will need to make selections and enter the required information that will be used to complete the 1094-C form. More on that in a moment. When you have completed a step, you can use the Next button at the top to move to the next step, or if you ever need to go back to a previous step, you can use the Previous button. On the far right is a side panel that contains some helpful information. At the top of the panel, you will see tips that you can read through. The tips displayed here provide helpful information regarding the use of the Preparer window and the information that must be provided to ensure your forms are complete and accurate. You can toggle between the different tips using the forward and back buttons here. And if you would like to read more about any of the tips displayed here, you can click the More Information link, and a website will open in your internet browser that contains the additional information. There is also a General Help option available, which you can access by clicking the Help button here. When you click it, a website will open in your internet browser, and you can use the links below or the search box to find the information you need to continue processing your forms. Another area in the sidebar to keep an eye on is the lower portion, where the system will display any errors that are encountered as you are working in the window. If any errors are detected, this section will include information about the errors and what you need to do to fix them. You cannot proceed to the next step until the errors that are listed here are resolved. The fields that the errors listed here pertain to also appear in red in the main area of the window. We will look at how to review and correct these errors in just a moment. If at any time you would like to shrink or hide the sidebar, you can do so clicking the arrow button here. And to bring it back, just click the arrow again. Now, let's talk about the information that is displayed in the main area of the preparer and start the process of completing Step 1. In Step 1, there are questions listed on the left side in the ALE Member Information section that you must provide answers to before you can proceed. The information you enter here will be used to complete the 1094-C form. There is a lot of help available in this window. If you are not sure how to answer a question, or would like to know more about what it is asking, you can hover your mouse over any of the hyperlinks in this window, and a tooltip will appear, providing you with more information. And for even more details, click the More Information link here, and you will be directed to a website that contains the additional information. You can also hover your mouse over any of the fields in this window for more information as well. And finally, it may also help in some cases to know what area or lines on the 1094-C form the answers to these questions will affect. Where appropriate, there is information in the Preparer window about exactly what part or line on the 1094-C form the information will be reported in. Let's get started. The first question you are required to answer is whether your company offers self-insured coverage or not. If your company is not self-insured, answer no, but if it is, answer yes. If you answer yes to this question, you will be required to complete Part 3 on the 1095-C forms. If you answer no, you are only required to complete Parts 1 and 2. The preparer will use the answer to this question to guide you through the process of completing the appropriate information on your 1095-C forms. In this example, we will select yes. Notice that as soon as the answer to question 1 was selected, the error that was displayed in the side panel is removed. Each time you fix an error, it is removed from the errors section. The system uses the information from your payroll software to determine the answer to the next 2 questions for you. In this database, there are no employees with foreign addresses, so no is automatically selected, and the value in the total number of Forms 1095-C submitted with this transmittal that will be used on line 18 in Part 1 of the 1094-C form is automatically calculated and filled in. Next, you must indicate if this is the authoritative transmittal for this EIN. This is used on line 19 in Part 1 of the 1094-C form. In this case, it is, so answer yes. And notice that by answering yes to that question, the preparer has recognized that there is now additional information that must be provided for the 1094-C form to be complete. So there are some additional questions to answer and fields that are required, each of which is highlighted in red. The next question you are required to answer is whether or not all employees for this EIN are included in this submission. If so, select yes. And the total number of Forms 1095-C filed by and/or on behalf of this EIN ALE member is provided automatically. If you were to answer no to this question, you would need to enter the total number of forms manually. The last question you must answer in the ALE member information section is whether or not you are a member of an aggregated ALE group. This is reported on line 21 in Part 2 of the 1094-C form. If you answer yes to this question, you will be required to enter information about the other ALE members using this button. But if you are not a member of an aggregated ALE group, choose no, and no additional information is required. If any of the certifications of eligibility reported on line 22 in Part 2 of the 1094-C apply to your company, select the appropriate checkboxes here. If not, do not select anything here. The last bit of information that is required to complete Step 1 is in the ALE Member Information Monthly section. The information you enter here is reported in Part 3 of the 1094-C form. For this section, If the information is the same for the entire year, you only need to enter it once on the All Year row. But if the information is not the same for each month in the year, you will need to fill it in for each month. For example, if your company offered minimum essential coverage to at least 95% of its full-time employees and their dependents for the entire calendar year, select the checkbox in the All Year column, and you do not need to select it for each individual month. Next, provide your full-time employee count for each month in the year. Again, if it is the same for the entire year, you can enter the number of full-time employees at your company in the All Year field. But if it fluctuated throughout the year, you will need to provide the number for each month. This is a value you can retrieve from within your payroll software, if you have been tracking it in the ACA compliance window. To get the count of full-time employees by month, minimize the 1095-1094C Preparer window, and in Payroll, go to Tasks, ACA Compliance. This task is used to determine full-time and full-time equivalent employee counts for each month in the year. The FT count at the bottom displays the number of full-time employees by month, and you can use the values here to enter into the full-time employee count column in the 1095-1094C Preparer window. Any employees who have a full-time ACA exemption status on the employee setup are included in this total, as well as any part-time employees whose hours that you have entered above total 130 hours or more in the month. For more information about how to use the ACA Compliance Task window to track this information, view the lesson titled Determine Full-Time and Full-Time Equivalent Counts. Using the information from the ACA Compliance Task window, enter the full-time employee count for each month. Then move to the Total Employee Count column, and enter the number of total employees at your business for the year. Again, if it is the same for all months, use the All Year row. Otherwise, the value for each month must be entered below. Like the values in the full-time employee count column, this information can be retrieved from Payroll. To get it, you will need to minimize the 1095-1094C Preparer window. You can access it under Reports, ACA Reporting. The payroll year will default to the current year, but you can change it if you need to. Now click Print Preview, and the report opens. For each month an employee had an ACA exempt status, under Setup, Employees, ACA Coverage, Employee Dependent Detail, there will be an X. And if you scroll to the end of the report, a total employee count for each month is displayed. You can use this information to complete the total employee count column in the 1095-1094C Preparer window. Now back in the Preparer, enter the total employee count by month using the information from the report you just viewed. And now that all of the required information has been entered, and no more errors have been detected, you can click the Next button at the top of the window. You are now in Step 2 of 5, and as you have most likely noticed, the information displayed in the Preparer has changed quite a bit. For the remaining steps in the Preparer, you will be reviewing the information for each employee that will be included on the 1095-C forms. All of your employees will be listed in rows in the Employee Information Grid, with their corresponding plan information displayed in the grid on the right side. When an employee is selected in one of the rows in the grids at the top, all of the information for that employee is also displayed in the lower portion of the window. The lower portion of the window is split into two tabs, with the information for the employee on the Employee Entry tab, and the information for any covered individuals that is used to complete Part 3 of the 1095-C for companies that offer employer-sponsored self-insured healthcare plans on the Covered Individuals tab. The Preparer will guide you through the process of reviewing all of the information that will be reported on the forms. So it is best to focus on just the information that is highlighted in yellow during each step so you don't miss anything. To move between employees, you can click anywhere on the row for the employee you want to view. Or you can move from one employee to the next using the forward and backward buttons in the lower portion of the window. In this step, the instructions say Verify Employee Information. This includes Social Security numbers, names, and address information. As you are reviewing the information for each employee, if you are ever unsure about the information that should be included in any of the fields, you can hover your mouse over the field, and a tooltip will open, providing details about the information required in the field. Just like you saw in the previous step, any mistakes or missing required information that is detected will be displayed in the errors on the right. You can click on any error in the list, and it works like a hyperlink, taking you to the employee and field that the error was detected in. In this case, the employee is missing the zip code, so in order to continue, the zip code will need to be entered. Errors can be corrected in the employee information grid or in the lower portion of the window. However, any corrections you make in the 1095-1094C Preparer window will not update the information in payroll itself. So in most cases, it is best to close out of the Preparer and fix the information in your payroll software rather than making changes here. If changes are made anywhere in the Preparer window, make sure to remember to update the information in payroll when you are done. Once you have reviewed the information for each of the employees, and all of the errors have been corrected, click Next to move to the next step. You are now in step 3 of 5, and as you have most likely noticed, the focus in the Preparer window has changed again. If your company is an applicable large employer, providing self-insured coverage to employees, you will be required to complete Part 3 on the 1095-C forms for each employee that is enrolled in the plan. If you answered no to the Does this employer provide self-insured coverage question in Step 1, Step 3 is not required, and you can click Next to skip it and move to Step 4. But if you answered yes, that your company does provide self-insured coverage, you will need to confirm that each employee who was enrolled in the plan has the employer-sponsored self-insured checkbox selected, and that the covered individual's information for each employee is correct. Notice that the Covered Individuals tab for the employee is now displayed automatically in the lower portion of the window. The first, and in some cases only, covered individual listed is the employee. For each month in which they were covered by an employer-sponsored self-insured healthcare plan, a check mark is placed in the month column to the right. If they were covered for the entire year, a single check mark in the All column is all that is required. For employees who have additional covered individuals entered, like this one here, the first covered individual listed is the employee, and any additional covered individuals, and the information entered for them that has been entered under Setup, Employees, ACA Coverage, Employee Dependent Detail, will be displayed below. As you review the information for each employee, you will want to confirm that the information and the month selected for each of the covered individuals is correct. And when you are ready to move forward, click Next. To move to Step 4 in the Preparer, where you can verify employee electronic delivery information. If any of your employees have opted to receive an electronic copy of their 1095 form, select the Electronic Only checkbox and confirm that the correct email address is displayed. If not, you can enter it here. This option should only be selected for employees who have opted to receive an electronic copy instead of a printed copy of the 1095-C form. Once you complete all of the steps in the 1095-1094-C Preparer, you will be prompted to choose how you want to submit your 1095 and 1094-C forms to the employees and the IRS. If you choose the complete e-filing service, each employee that is selected as electronic only will receive an electronic copy of this form and will not receive a paper copy. There is a significant cost savings in the complete e-filing service package for employees who will receive their forms electronically. More on that in a moment. There is an electronic 1095 consent form available in Payroll under Tasks, Federal eFile and Reporting that you can print and provide to any of your employees who would like to receive electronic copies of the 1095 to complete and sign. When you are ready, click Next to move to Step 5. In Step 5, you will be reviewing the coverage information for each employee. Notice that the focus has shifted to the plan information in the grid at the top. You can review the coverage information for each employee in the grid at the top or at the bottom of the window. This information is completed automatically based on what you have tracked for each employee for each month in Payroll under Setup, Employees, ACA Coverage, Employee Dependent Detail. If the information in the Offer of Coverage, Employee Share of Premium, and applicable Safe Harbor is the same for the entire year, it is entered just once in the All Year columns. But if any of this information was not the same for the entire year, the information is not entered in the All Year columns. Instead, it is displayed for each month in each of the monthly columns. You can review this information in the grid at the top of the window, using the scroll bar to see the monthly information, or for each individual employee at the bottom of the window on the Employee Entry tab. Once you have confirmed the correct information is entered for each employee, click Next to open the 1095, 1094-C Printing and eFiling Options window. In this window, you must indicate how you would like to submit the 1095 and 1094-C forms to the IRS and your employees. The complete e-filing service includes printing and mailing the physical copies of the forms to the employees, or providing electronic copies to those who have opted to receive their forms in an electronic format, as well as electronic filing of the Forms 1095 and 1094-C with the IRS. If you prefer to print and mail these forms on your own, or would like to choose a combination of printed and e-filed forms, select Other Options and indicate which forms you would like to print versus those you would like to e-file. For example, if you would like to print and mail the copies on your own, select Print My Employee 1095-Cs, clear the option for e-filing, and select Print Federal Copy 1095-Cs/1094-C. If you select the complete e-filing service, or to e-file the federal 1095, 1094-C forms here, a login screen will appear when you click Next, where you will be prompted to enter your username and password for e-filing with Atrix. You will then be prompted to specify a date for the submission to go through. If you would like to know more about the process of e-filing, click the More Info link near the top of the window. In this example, the options to print the forms were selected. Clicking Next will start that process. One last window appears that explains the benefits of the complete ACA eFile service. If you have changed your mind and would prefer to e-file your forms, you can select Yes here. If not, click Next. The last step is to review and confirm the forms that will be printed. The list displays all forms and how they will be processed in the Forms viewer. Make sure you review the action list for accuracy. You can also print a copy of the action list for your records by clicking the Print button. To start printing the forms, click Next. The Forms Viewer window opens and displays the first copy that it will print. In this case, it is the federal copy of the 1094-C form. The Forms Viewer works in the same manner as any other tax form created in Payroll under Tasks, Federal eFile and Reporting, or State eFile and Reporting. You can see how many pages will print and scroll between them using the buttons in the top left. The wording in the Report Steps tells you what to do, and up at the top it will show you how many reports you have to print and which one you are currently looking at. When you are ready to print the form, click Print Final. Some tax forms require specialized paper, while others can be printed on standard printer paper. Each time you click Print Final, a warning will appear to let you know which type of paper to use for the copy currently being printed. In this case, this copy should be printed on plain paper. Once you have confirmed the correct paper is loaded in your printer, click OK. And the Printer option window appears, where you can change any printing preferences as necessary. When you are ready to print the form, click OK. And after confirming that it printed properly, click Next Step. To move to the next report in the Forms viewer. In this case, it is the federal copy of the 1095-C forms. Notice this one has 51 pages. There will be a 1095-C for each employee that was included in the 1095-1094-C preparer window. You can use the forward and back buttons at the top to move between pages if you want to view each one. And when you are ready, click Print Final. Review the paper warning to ensure you have the correct paper loaded in the printer, then click OK. And when you are ready, click OK again to print the forms. And after confirming that they printed properly, click Next Step. To move to the next report, the Employee 1095-C Notice. This is required to be included when 1095-C forms are mailed to employees. If you have ordered and will be using specialized forms for the employee copies of the 1095-C forms, this information may already be included on the back of them. But if not, this step will allow you to print a single copy of this notice that you can make copies of so that you can include it with the copies of the 1095-C forms that you will be distributing to each employee. To print this notice, click Print Final. Make sure the printer is loaded with the correct paper and then click OK. And when you are ready, click OK again to start printing. And then click Next Step to move to the next report. Report 4 is the Employer 1095-C, or in other words, the record copies of the 1095-C forms for the employer. To print copies for your records, click Print Final. Make sure the printer is loaded with the correct paper, and then click OK. And when you're ready, click OK to start printing. Then click Next Step to move to the last report. Report 5 is the Employee 1095-C forms. These are the copies of the 1095-C that need to be distributed to the employees. When you are ready to print the forms, click Print Final. And notice that the paper warning that appears for this report has changed. The copies that are distributed to employees must meet certain requirements, and therefore we recommend you use specialized forms for this copy. For more information about the paper requirements for the Employee 1095-C forms, see the article titled, "Which Forms Should I Order for Affordable Care Act Reporting?" in the Technical Support Knowledge Base. Once you have confirmed that the correct paper is loaded in the printer, click OK. And click OK again to print the forms. And finally, click Next Step. And that's it. The forms have been printed and will be waiting for you on your printer. The 1095-1094-C History File Options window appears, showing the status of all of the completed actions. It also provides you with some options on the right to reprint completed 1095-1094-Cs, eFile or print incomplete 1095-1094-Cs, which in this case does not apply since everything that was required was completed, make corrections, or start over. If you need to use any of these available options, select one and click Next. Otherwise, to exit the ACA Preparer, click the Close button. Now that you have completed this lesson, you should be able to complete the filings of your federal 1095-C and 1094-C forms.
Sage offers several ways for you to interact and get the answers you need quickly. Get help from others with similar questions in a Sage City community, find answers in our knowledge base, or take an online course on Sage University.